Happy Friday, everybody. TGIF and all that. It is day number 197. Start getting excited, everybody. We're going to get there soon. First card of the day is Skilled Animator from core set 19. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 1/3 human artificer. When it ETBs, target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 5/5 for as long as Animator remains on the battlefield. So, you know, 5/5. You also get the bookcase from Beauty and the Beast. It's nice. I was thinking it looks more like the wardrobe than the bookcase, but it is a bookcase. But one way or the other, I guess you get 6 power in stats when you pay 3 mana for this guy, you know? It's like a Zoetic Glyph. It's not as good as a Zoetic Glyph, but it's like a Zoetic Glyph. It's not that bad, right? I'll give him like a 3.6. He's not great, but he's neat, you know. Steam Blast from Urza's Saga here is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a sorcery that deals 2 damage to each creature and each player. Alright, little sweeper effect, you know, not good in comparison with like Brotherhood's End, Anger of the Gods, and like many other red sweeper effects, but back in the day, this is fine, I guess. I will give this a sideboardable 4. You know, it's an anthem, or not an anthem, it's a wrath effect in function that can actually leave creatures behind on your side of the table too, so, you know. 3.9 actually. Let's put it in 3 territory. There are better, way better red sweepers than this. A lot better, but still, yeah, it's not terrible. Overlaid Terrain from Nemesis is up next. Always good art by Dieter Lizzie. 4 mana, 2 and 2 green for an enchantment. As it comes into play, sacrifice all lands you control. Lands you control have tap, add 2 mana of any color to your mana pool. Wow. Wow, this is 71 cents. I guess what you're supposed to do is A, have a lot of creature or artifact based mana, right? Have a bunch of rocks or Lawnmower Elves or whatever, Birds of Paradise. And then you can play this and not have no mana. You know, just, you can also float all of your land mana when you play it, so that, you know, once you've played it, yeah, you have to sacrifice all your lands and all that, but you floated mana, so you have mana left over if you had lands left over. But the other way you can maybe do this is with like Crucible of Worlds and other things that let you play lands out of your graveyard, and Life from the Loam and stuff. Because yeah, you have to sack all your lands, but you can pretty quickly get your land count back to where it was and beyond with Crucible tricks and the ability to play more than one land a turn from like Azusa or Loot or whatever card you're doing. So it'd be fairly easy to recover from this if you did it right. But all that said, I think this is like probably the hardest way to come around to a one-sided mana flare that I could possibly imagine. You're going to screw yourself over with it some of the times without meaning to. It's just, this is a really dangerous card. The only other thing I can really think is if you want lands in your graveyard, maybe you play this, you know, like, ha! I've Armageddon myself. What are you going to do about that? It's like, okay. I'm going to sit back and watch whatever the next thing you do is. It'll be entertaining. Or boring, because you don't have any lands, you can't cast any spells. But one way or the other, it's a very unique card that I'm still going to give a very harsh score to. 1.5. 1.5. I outlined a few ways to use the card. Nonetheless, the card is still terrible. The card is still, this is not good. I can almost guarantee you. But next is half squirrel, half whatever you want it to be. It's one of these cards from Unstable. We don't do uncards. Apocalypse Hydra. What a name for a card. From Conflux here. Still cost you about $1 to buy. This is red, green, and X for a 0/0 Hydra. I bet that it's got PT equal to what you paid for it. Apocalypse Hydra comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it. How did I know? If X is 5 or more, it comes into play with an additional X +1/+1 counters. Sexy. You can also pay 1 and a red and remove a counter from it to have it deal a damage to target creature or player. It says any target in the Oracle text, so you can hit battles and planeswalkers nowadays, which is pretty great. Nothing wrong with that, kiddo. Yeah, altogether, alright, like in your Hydra deck, which there are a number of in Commander, but there's one specific Hydra guy that cares about X cost that's like always in the top 10 commanders on EDA track. And I imagine this guy's pretty good in that deck. Either way, man, if you can spend 7 mana on this, you get at least a 10/10. And then if you have a lot of mana, which you presumably do, having spent so much mana on this guy in the first place, his activated ability becomes really good. especially if you have ways of putting other +1/+1 counters on them, and you probably do. So this is actually pretty gross, dude. Extremely mana intensive. No keyword abilities. I think hurts an awful lot, but altogether a neat Magic card, dude. 4.8. 4.8, and yeah, that is below 5, even though it looks like really, really powerful. But again, I think like the mana you're actually being forced to pour into this does hurt the card a lot, and lack of keyword abilities. That'll kill a card fast. It really will. But Sram's Expertise is up next from Ether Revolt. This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 white for a sorcery. Create 3 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Why did this never really see play in Standard? It's so cool, man. Like, 4 mana seems like a lot, but you get 3 guys and a free spell. It's like, oh, I'm not skipping my turn 4 to just get a bunch of tokens. Like, I also just get to do something else. You know, you usually want Sram's Expertise to probably be like the top end of your curve. You don't want your hand to be full of like 4 drops and stuff. But that's sad, dude. That's like, you can play Sram's Expertise and then just drop like any Anthem effect in existence. You know what I mean? Seems good. Seems good to me. It really does. I don't know why more people aren't on it. I really don't. Nowadays, I'm not too sure. Like in your Artifact Commander deck, maybe if you're trying to go super wide with artifacts. I don't think it's that bad. I'm going to give it a 4.6 because I think it's like almost there, and there are some decks that do want to play it, but I just don't think it's at the level that I want it to be. Not quite. Hurkyl's Final Meditation. This is going to be tough, actually. 7 mana, 4 and 3 blue for an instant. As long as it's not your turn, this spell costs 3 more to cast. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand and end the turn. So, if it is your opponent's turn, you paid 10 mana for this card. But you also, effectively counter whatever spells on the stack. You end whatever attack they're trying to get. You Cyclonic Rift everything, right, on their side of the table. And again, you end the turn. You get to just go. You get to just untap and draw your card right then and there. And that's actually really powerful. I've seen a few people running this card. Some of them people I really trust. I can't remember if it was like, maybe it was Mingucci that I saw playing this card on YouTube at some point. But it might not have been Mingu. It may have been somebody else. And they were really behind sort of their inclusion of this card. And I think it's like a Teamer Doppelgang type list of some kind. Or something that was trying to go really deep. But I've seen this card pop up a couple of times in Standard, and I imagine in Commander, if you can actually resolve it, it's probably fun, but not great, right? Altogether, though, extremely powerful text box, especially return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. It's not one-sided or anything, but it's still Cyclonic Rift, literally Cyclonic Rift, which we know to be a pretty powerful Magic card. So I'm going to give this a 5. Like right out of 5. I think it's too mana intensive to be like truly broken. Like once we do hit Cyclonic Rift, that's going to get a very good score, right? But Final Meditation is still like once resolved, a absolute blowout of a Magic card. Next is Ice Flow. I haven't seen you in a while, buddy. You're originally from Ice Age. You are a land. Note that this land does not tap 4 mana, but you may choose not to untap it during your untap phase. Tap. Tap target creature without flying that is attacking you. As long as Flow remains tapped, that creature does not untap during its controller's untap phase. So, what this is, in case you don't know what you're looking at, is Maze of Ith. I just had to take a sip of coffee and allow you to really absorb that take for a second. In case you don't know what Maze of Ith is, it is also a land. It's from the Dark. It also comes into play untapped, and also does not tap 4 mana of any kind. But what it does is tap to remove a creature from combat, and it doesn't do any damage this combat. This is extremely similar to that card. Extremely similar to that card. In that, it's going to lock down a creature forever, and you can just untap it on your next turn and start tapping down other things. That's really good. Maze of Ith doesn't work, or Maze of Ith works on flyers and stuff, this doesn't. But altogether, I do think this is kind of an underplayed Magic card, It doesn't tap for mana, which sucks, but it's still a land. It's still effectively a free removal spell for your deck, no matter what you're playing. And I fully endorse, pick. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I have a copy of Ice Flow. Order Ice Flow. This card's really good, and people don't understand that it's very, very good. It's a free removal spell. It's free. It's free. and it's a removal spell. Just takes up your land drop for the turn. That's all. Later on in the game, that's not that bad. I'm telling you. Card's okay. But also, note, by the way, it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step, so it's going to deal damage to you that turn, unlike a Maze of It. I should point that out, but still. Ice Flow is a more than solid Magic card that I think is completely lost to time at this point, and it shouldn't be. This is a better card than it looks like. Have I rated it yet? No, I haven't, actually. I'm going to give Ice Flow a 5.1. Totally serious, too. Death Hood Cobra is up next, so that's a name for a Magic card. 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/2 Snick. You can pay 2 mana to have it gain Death Touch until end of turn. You can pay 2 mana to have it gain Reach until end of turn. That's the whole card. It's originally printed in New Phyrexia down here. And it's not like too impressive, but it is a strictly better Grizzly Bear, so I gotta give it that. 2.1 for Death Hood Cobra, and we move on. Hurkyl, everybody. This is the Ice Age art. It's Ice Age Day. Everyone's probably more familiar with this art, the tropical palm trees blowing in a breeze, a cyclone sort of art. But I've actually kind of always been a little bit more partial to the perfect storm art from Ice Age's Hurkyl. This is X and a green for a sorcery. It deals X damage to each creature with flying and each player, which is actually really, really good. That last part. And again, one of the underrated parts of the card. I think that a lot of people look at Hurkyl nowadays and they forget that this was a green fireball that effectively, allowed your mono green monsters deck to just close the game. I don't have to do combat damage anymore. I'm ahead on life totals, so I guess everyone takes 6 and I win. You know what I mean? Like, that happened all the time back then. Hurkyl was effectively a finisher for a lot of green decks in the very early days, and they just stopped printing it. This is a very green ability for a long time, and they just stopped printing it. I think we should bring it back. I do. I think we should bring Hurkyl back. This is a very cool Magic card. I'm not going to give it more than like a 4.5, but I am going to give it a 4.5. This blows up most flyers on the table for at least a reasonable cost, like, comparable to other sweepers. It'll blow up nearly every flyer on the table and deal a chunk of damage for you, which, yes, can sometimes put you in a bad situation if you're below on life total, but, for the most part, the way you built your decks, you're mono green monsters, dude. you want to be ahead on life total. It doesn't mean you always are, but again, I've seen Hurkyl end, I don't know how many, 50 games of Magic at least in my life on kitchen tables, and I feel like it could still do that in Commander from time to time nowadays. So, good card. We'll move on to Verdant Catacombs, though. Have we done fetches, guys? Actually? Have we actually done fetches yet? I'm not sure that we have. Okay, so this one's Verdant Catacombs. You tap it, you pay a life, you sack it, you search your library for a swamp or a forest, put it on the battlefield, shuffle up. They all read similar to that, they just, sub in different basic land types. Only, you don't have to go get a basic land, obviously. You go get any swamp, any forest with this. There's ones where you can go get any island or any mountain, right? So that changes things entirely, because when they give lands, a basic land type in the type bar, then suddenly any of these can go get them. So you can go get triomes with these. There's a couple of lands that you can put into play that do other stuff for you, like Surveil or whatever, right? So these are absolutely busted. They thin your deck. They effectively they're like a dual land that comes into play untapped, no matter what. They're the second closest thing to that in a lot of ways. They also put lands in your graveyard. There's plenty of reasons you might want to be doing that too. Amazing with like Crucible of Worlds effects. I shouldn't have to tell you why these are good. But I know there's going to be some newer players who, every time they see these cards for the first time, are like, that looks terrible. These are incredible. These are among the best lands ever printed. And I think you can make the argument that apart from the original untapped dual lands from Alpha, these are the second best set of dual lands ever printed in the history of Magic. Better than Shocklands. I really think you can make that argument easily and win. So I'm going to give Fetchlands in general, because I really don't remember having rated these before, and they're a great last card of the day. I'll give Fetchlands in general a 9.7. I think that these are some of the best Magic cards that have literally ever been printed. We're not going to go like, 10 on these or anything, but as far as lands go, it really does not get much better than these, provided that you have some lands you can fetch up with them, right? And that's not hard, so. Yeah, I feel really comfortable giving that a 9.7 and closing out the video. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments section. Are they 10s? I mean, I don't think the problem is I rated too highly. I really don't. I think the problem is that these could be very close to perfect Magic cards, and I'm not acknowledging that. So discuss in the comments, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.